Hello, and these are the notes for Unit 8, Day 4, Pythagorean Theorem. We're going to simplify, make sure we know how to simplify a square root with and without variables. Know how to solve equations that have a squared variable, and then we're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem. All right, here's your list of perfect squares. Make sure that you're good with knowing how to find them because it's 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, but I'm interested in the perfect squares are those numbers in red. So make sure you can find those for the test. So 1, 4, 9, 16, and so on. Radical is simplified when the biggest square root factor of the radicand is 1. Only 1 square root per term. Use the distributive property as needed and no square roots in the denominator. Don't forget this. If I have the square root of AB, it's the square root of A times the square root of B, meaning if I have the square root of 2 times 3, it's the same as the square root of 2 times the square root of 3. Likewise, if I have the square root of A over B, it's the square root of A over square root of B. So if I have the square root of 25 over 36, that's the same as the square root of 25 over square root of 36, which simplifies to 5 over 6. Radicals do not distribute over addition, so remember that square root of 25 minus 16 does not equal square root of 25 minus square root of 16. Likewise, the square root of x squared plus 25 does not equal x plus 5. You cannot take the square root of each part because look up here, this is the square root of 9. This would be 5 minus 4. Square root of 9 is 3. 5 minus 4 is 1. Those are not the same. Square root of a variable squared, if I have the square root of an even number, and I end up with x to an odd number, I put the absolute value of ours. For instance, if I have the square root of 5 squared, that is the absolute value of 5 or 5. Or if I had the square root of negative 5 squared, it's the absolute value of negative 5, which is also positive 5. That's why we end up with positive each time. Here, if I had the square root of, let's say, x to the 14th, it's going to be x to the 7th. And since this is an odd number, you put the absolute value bars. If I had the square root of x to the 12th, though, you get x to the 6th, not an odd number, so you don't have to put the absolute value bars. Order of operations backwards and use, so when you isolate a variable, go backwards. So we do go take PEMDAS and go backwards. Add, subtract, then do multiply, divide, exponents, and parentheses. So let's look at this one. First one, if I have a squared on both sides, I'm going to take the square root. So this is going to be x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 25. So when I take each side to the 1/2 power, I take the square root of both sides. I'm taking it to the 1/2 power. That exponent is gone, so 25 to the half is square root. When I do an even power root, I've got to put a plus or minus. So here I get x minus 2 equals plus or minus 5. Add 2, so we get x equals 2 plus or minus the square, or plus or minus 5. So add 2 over here. Two answers are x equals 2 plus 5, which is 7, 2 minus 5, which is negative 3. And you can always check them. Does it make sense? So 7 minus 2 squared, does that equal 25? That's 5 squared, so that works. Put the negative 3 in there. Negative 3 minus 2 squared, does that equal 25? Negative 3 minus 2 is a negative 5, but when you square negative 5, you get 25. So yep, those both work. The next one, I need to move the 40 over first. So I have x plus 1 quantity squared equals, add 40 to both sides. 40. Take the square root, so we get x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 40. All right, square root of 40 divides by 4. So I can think of that as square root of 4, square root of 10. So x plus 1 equals plus or minus 2 square root of 10. Move your 1 over, or subtract 1 on both sides. I'm going to just draw an arrow there. So I'm going to move the 1 to here. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus 2 square root of 10. This one looks a little more complicated. It is. So subtract 3 first on both sides. So we have 2 parentheses, x minus 3 squared equals 12. Divide by 2. So quantity x minus 3 squared equals 6. How do you undo a squared? You take the square root. So we get x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 6. Move the 3 over here. So add 3. X equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 6. Last one here, add 1 to both sides. So x plus 7 quantity squared over 3 equals 6. Multiply by 3 on both sides. So x plus 7 quantity squared equals 18. Take the square root again. So x plus 7 equals plus or minus the square root of 18. We can break down 18. It divides by 9 and 2. So x plus 7, that's a 2, not 7. X plus 7 equals plus or minus 3 square root of 2. Move your 7 over, so minus 7 here. So x equals negative 7 plus or minus 3 square root of 2. All right, next one is Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem, missing side of a right triangle. This has to be a right triangle, so you have to see that little mark there. Or we say it's a right triangle, then you're good. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So leg squared plus leg squared equals a hypotenuse squared. And hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. Meaning the right angle opposite, meaning that side opposite it. All right, so find the missing side of the triangle. So I can say 7 squared, I'm going to make that a b, plus b squared equals 25 squared. Use your calculator. So 49 plus b squared equals, find a calculator. So 25 squared is 625. So subtract 49 from both sides. So b squared equals 625 minus 49, 576. So I'm going to take the square root, so you get b equals square root of 576. Now here we only want the positive because a negative side doesn't make sense, so only positive. So square root of 576, let's see if that's anything. It is 24, so b equals 24. Next one, we'll do 10 squared plus 15 squared equals c squared. I'll make that side c. So let's simplify this. So 100 plus 15 squared is 225 equals c squared. So this gives me 325 equals c squared. So square root of 325 is c. Is that a nice number? So let's do square root of 325 is, nope, not a nice number. So we have to simplify that radical. So I know that 25 goes into that. So 25 times what? So 325 divided by 25 is 13. Square root of 25 is 5, so my final answer is 5 square root of 13 equals c. Assignment, the review worksheet. Have a good day.